Good afternoon and welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint Podcast. We are coming at you on October 30th, just right on the brink of what looks to be one of our most crazy elections ever in this country. But before we get into any of that, I want to introduce you to our panel. Up in our left-hand corner is Leon the Word Brathwaite. He is a retired engineer in California, and the word is for the last word in liberty. I almost forgot that, Leon. And up in our right-hand corner is Tim Everett. He is our Screaming Eagle of Freedom here, and he is a pilot in the state of California. My name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. And if you have any comments or questions, or you want to try and contact us in the future about any kind of COVID-related nonsense to your business or anything like that, or riots, you can get a hold of us. There should be eventually an email stream coming across the screen here. So anyways, let's jump right into the topics. The election, we're literally right on the brink. We're just about 4 or 5 days from the election here. And, it's looking like it's likely Biden, but it's a lot of crazy stuff up in the air. I mean, we've got riots, COVID, people locked out of their businesses, just a whole, people trying to escape the state of California, just all kinds of things going on. So you guys have any thoughts about this? What's going to happen and what's next after what does happen?
Well, I'm gonna pop in first to give Leon the last word as he deserves, and I am going to not be very committed one way or the other. I'm going to hold out that it can go either way, only because Trump has proven that he, in the past, has been able to do what the polls said he could not do. So I will just say that it's probably, like Jason said, likely that Biden will win, as unbelievable as that sounds in a certain sense, because the guy's one step away from the long-term care facility mentally, but aside from that, then he's got a psychopath as a running mate. So you've got those two things. So in the world of lesser evils, I think it's pretty clear that as evil as Trump can be made out to be, and in many ways deservedly so, he is definitely the lesser of these two. But anyway, I'm not going to be committing one way or the other to predict who's going to win. So, Leon, who do you think is going to win?
Okay, I'm going to stick my neck out and say likely Trump, and I'll tell you why. Okay.
Oh, okay.
The reason why I know what the polls are saying. I know the polls are saying, like Jason, I know why you're saying likely Biden. The polls are saying that, but I'm going to say likely Trump for the following reasons. Trump has an enthusiasm gap with Biden that is insurmountable. Trump supporters are almost fanatic, shall we say. I wouldn't use that word, but it's almost there. And they are going to go to the polls, and they are going to the polls already in greater numbers, in percentage-wise than Biden's number, I think. There's another underlying phenomenon that's going on that nobody's talking about. I think Donald Trump, who got only 8% of the black vote in 2016, I think Donald Trump is going to break 15% this time around. Now, if he does that, that essentially will break the back of the Democrats. Seriously. They need at least 85% of the black vote to win. Now, Trump could win without 15% of the black vote. The Democrats have a hard time winning if they don't get 85. Okay? Really and truly. That's one thing. The other thing too, in Florida, and I think this is going on in other parts of the country, Biden is underperforming with Hispanics. Now he's still leading. I think it's like 55 to 45 or whatever, and that kind of stuff. He's still leading, but it's way below the numbers that Hillary Clinton got in the 2016 election. That I think is significant. So with those things in mind, and if those trends continue throughout the country, I am going to say it's likely Trump, even though the polls are telling us that it's likely Biden. And I want to remind you of one thing, Jason. Tim, you will not know about this incident. The Sunday before the last election, Brian sent out a map showing where Trump was going to win. He got every state, even though the polls were all saying Hillary was going to win, he got every state correct except Minnesota.
Just for the audience, this is one of our lunch buddies. So
yes,
even
thank
okay.
you. Yes, he got every state correct except Minnesota. And I asked Brian why. How come he could have gotten that? How? He said the enthusiasm gap. Trump supporters are very, and you know Brian, our friend, very enthusiastic, ready to go to battle for Trump, and that is what's going on out there right now. And I think that phenomena is more so now than it was in 2016. So I'm going to stick my neck out and say likely Trump.
Well, I think one thing that's very clear, and that's that the there is a tremendous price to pay for anybody who announces they are voting for Trump. And I'll just put it out. I mean, I voted for JoJo about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but that's Joe Jorgensen. Just so you don't confuse me, think I went crazy or anything. but and to be honest, just to give you a little background. I mean, my first vote for the Libertarian ticket was back with Gary Johnson when he ran against Obama's second term, I believe. I think it was the second term they ran. That's the first time I really felt good about who I was voting for at the presidential level. And, Joe Jorgensen, I think I can, keep going on that track with her. But getting back to the Trump thing, I mean, if I can say in I guess polite circles that I'm voting for Joe Jorgensen. People might look at me like I'm a little crazy, but aside from that, people might say, well, you're throwing away your vote on some third party. But aside from that, it doesn't tremendously cost me. If you say in the wrong circles you're voting for Trump, I mean, you may get unfriended, you may get fired, you may, there could be all kinds of crazy things that happen to you. So it's one of those things where there could be a tremendous undercounting, but I've never seen the media line up against a candidate the way they have against Trump either. So it's just there's so much crazy stuff going along. And then to top it off, even if, aside from all these crazy to predict things, what's going to happen with the vote? I mean, we've got this situation where there's a lot of uncertainty about how the vote is going to be counted with all of this mail electing that's happening this time around. Now, California, we've at least for me, I've been able to vote by mail ahead of time by request, but this is something where it's going for quite a few years. But for the rest of the country, this is kind of being pushed on everybody on very short notice. So there could be a lot of problems going on out there and a lot of difficulty even being able to figure out who won at the end of all this. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I would just shucks. You know what? Let Leon do that because I'm going to change the subject, and I don't want to do that right now. Go ahead, Leon.
Well, Jason, that point you just raised about the what is being called the shy voter, the shy Trump voter. I think that's a real phenomenon, a very, very real phenomenon, because just like you say, people don't want to disclose. I know 2 people right now, as we speak, both black, who's going to vote for Donald Trump, but wouldn't tell a soul except somebody like me, right? These are people that are close to me who trust me enough to not to tell anybody else outside the circle. And I think that phenomenon is real, and it's more real among blacks right now in this cycle. But this whole thing about the ballots, this is one of Trump's probably uncertainties or one of his challenges, because all of the mail-in issues that we're having right now, they are occurring in states that are controlled by Team Blue. I'm using your vernacular here. And they are doing everything they can to create this chaos and uncertainty so that we're not going to know on election day who won the election, and we may not know for another week. So this is one of the problems that Donald Trump may face even if he may end up winning the election. But they're going to make it as difficult as possible. And it's a real potential problem. And I hope after all this is done, and if Trump win or whoever win, I hope you're going to do something about these mail-in ballots, because that thing have to be straightened out. We had a horrific situation in New York. I think the primary was a Democratic primary. It occurred on June 23rd or something like that. They didn't know the results for about 6 weeks. Good Lord, I hope we're not facing that going into this election.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if I can, I hope not too. But if I could make a prediction myself, I'll go out on the limb and make this prediction here. This is kind of a if this then that type of prediction. So the prediction is that after 6 weeks have passed, and finally we've counted all the votes, and we find out, just as an example, that that Biden wins according to the electoral vote, which is the only vote that matters. Right. But Trump wins the popular vote. All of a sudden, every Democrat known to mankind is going to wax philosophic about the wonders of the electoral college. Because all of a sudden they will flip and flop to the other side, and just, they're going to pull out their Articles of Confederation, and they're going to look at their all their writings of the founders, and they're going to just be gushing wonders of the electoral college. Why? Because they have zero principles. They are in 100% partisan. So whatever's good for the party is good for them, and whatever's bad for the party is bad for them. The only reason the system is flawed is because it has the audacity of allowing a Republican to win once in a while. And if the system was only fixed, then every single election, 100% would be won by Democrats, and then it would be a good system. Until then, it's a flawed, bad system and must be fixed.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, I think that's probably an outlier chance we're going to have that that somehow Trump is the popular and not the electoral college.
It could happen.
It could happen, but I think it's probably a long shot anyway. I wouldn't want to check the betting odds on that one.
If the unlikeliest of likelihoods occurs, I know what I'm posting on my Facebook page first thing the next morning.
Well, listen, this is 2020. We have had so much weird stuff happen in 2020. Who the hell knows? This could be one of the weird stuff that happened in 2020.
Oh my goodness. Anyway.
Well, I couldn't help but notice, Tim, you mentioned, your Facebook page and posting on that. And that brings me to another topic. And, this is something that we've kind of noticed over the past 4 years. It's you couldn't help but notice it. But since Trump, started running, politics has really been tearing people apart. People literally, especially in the age of Trump, have defriended each other, have, decide, families maybe, having a hard time getting together, over, issues like this, especially if somebody finds out, not so much that you voted for Biden, but if somebody found out you voted for Trump.
No problem.
Like Leon's friends. And what were their names, Leon?
It's coming. It's coming. The check is in the mail.
Oh goodness. Okay.
But this does bring up something, and it's why I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious to hear what you guys thought. Why are we so torn apart by politics now? It didn't seem like it always used to be that way. It seemed like you could be a Democrat and a Republican, or maybe a libertarian, and somehow be in the not invited to to maybe, but not outright hated. And I
think it's because of the two reasons. It's social media and this whole total exposure to be able, because I used to know people for years that I would see frequently in social gatherings and where we had time to talk. I didn't know the first thing about their political views until Facebook came along. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that person's conservative or they're liberal, and I never knew that about them, you know. And I'm talking a lot of people. So I think it's social media, and I also think that it's the 24/7 news that a lot of people watch, not me, but a lot of people watch this nonsense brought into their minds, fed to them 24/7, and they allow themselves to get caught up in it. And that is just fear mongering. That's the only reason the news in America lives to foment fear amongst their viewers, and that it keeps them coming right back for more, you know, because if you're going to fight or flight, you got to make sure where the enemy's coming from next. So you better tune in to whatever news source you listen to get the latest fear mongering. So I think it's those two reasons why it's gotten totally crazy at this point. Leon, what do you think?
Well, I will agree. It goes back to the media and its presentation of the differences in society. But the one element I think that is really ripping us apart is this manufactured thing of systemic racism that is being advocated and propagated by the media. Now look at this situation here about this rioting that is going on. I guess we were supposed to talk about it, but it's relevant here. Look at this situation here that is going on in Philadelphia. Now, it is true the police officer shot a guy.
Let's lay out the facts here too, Leon. So in Philadelphia, there was a man. His last name was Wallace, I think, and
Walter Wallace Jr.
Walter Wallace Jr. And he was the police were responding to a call. They came to deal with the call, and it's all on video. The guy comes charging out into the street after the two police officers with a knife. They're backing up. They're telling him to stop, and he's not stopping, and he's got a knife in his hand, and they open fire on him. And within a day, everybody is rioting and looting, Walmart stores and other mom and pop businesses. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course. I mean, they're guilty. Walmart and the other businesses, of course you got to burn them down because
there we go, systemic racism. So the whole point is though, look how that is being presented in the media. Okay, white police officer killed a black man. It's not that the black man had a knife charging at the police officer. That is not mentioned. Well, they now mention it now. Well, but the way they mention it, they say, the police claim that he had a knife. When the video is very clear, the police was backing up, telling the guy to put the knife down, put the knife down. He kept on coming to them. They shot him. What do you expect? But my point about this is how is being portrayed. You see, what they're doing right now is that if it bleeds, it leads. If it burns, it earns. And if it's race, it's in your face. And that is what they're using to divide us. Where every time we see a white person, we must see, people like me, we must see an enemy. And every time a white person sees someone like me, they're seeing someone who needs to be saved. Or we will talk about that one later too. And this is what's going on. Blacks in America, a certain sector of the black community now is getting this sense of entitlement. That rioting and burning down people's place is okay because of this so-called systemic racism that the media is propagating here. And this is what is going on. We are destroying our countries over a false narrative. Yes, there was systemic racism in this country at one time, but that was during Jim Crow. This is 2020. We already elected a black president. And what more could we do?
Well, and not to mention too, Leon, that a lot of the political leaderships in these places where the rioting is occurring is black. I mean,
exactly. Look at Baltimore. The mayor is black. The entire city council is black and Democrat. And we still having crap going on in Baltimore. And nearly every city is ruled by Democrats, and in many cases, in most cases, probably black Democrats. And still we're having these problems of systematic racism.
Yeah.
And this is the nonsense that's being propagated in the media. That is what is tearing us apart. This nasty identity politics that these Democrats are playing is what is going to destroy us if we don't do something about it and do something about it quick.
Well, you know, I agree with both of your guys' points, the social media point Tim brought up and the racial divisiveness that Leon brought up. But I think there's one other point too, and I think it's sort of should be near and dear to libertarians' hearts, but it's the idea that as government gets bigger and we keep on putting more and more in the basket of government, then yes, when we vote for something, it's a package deal. I mean, literally, you're voting for a whole bunch of preferences at one time that you're going to force on somebody else in a lot of cases, the more we ask government to do. And I think this is why it's essential to me that, aside from the issues of racial divisiveness and the social media aspect, but that's why it's imperative that we have government do less, because the less we have government do, the more my choices don't affect you and the more your choices don't affect me, and we can get along with each other.
Yeah.
So
great point. Yeah, that's
very good point, Jason. Great point.
I think all of the points we're all raising are part of they're all one puzzle piece to this thing, and it's terrible because I think we might be headed off some kind of a crazy cliff in 2021, with respect to the nation being able to hang together, because everybody is literally picking sides, and to the point where it's you got your narrative of reality and I've got mine. You watch it. The easy thing to watch is this whole election scandal with the Hunter Biden thing, and literally the left has either not reporting it or their narrative where it's a fake fake reporting on Hunter Biden, and the right is all in on the reporting on Hunter Biden, and you literally, depending upon which side you're getting your news from, you've got a different reality from the people you're living next door to and the people you're going to be forcing your preferences on at the polls. So
yeah, actually, I wouldn't be all broken up if the country broke up, because it's too many people. It's Washington's on the other side of the planet, and literally and figuratively, and they so if the country breaks up, as secession is part of the original founding and has been reiterated numerous times. So if I have to, because I'm left in California and they split off and became the new socialist country of the world, then I'd probably have to go somewhere else. But and I may have to go somewhere else anyway. But you know what I'm saying.
Well, at least you got wings, Tim. At least you got wings.
Yeah.
Get out here a little easier.
Well, I fly wings that are owned by some other big
somebody else. But even I'm not sure I'm with the secession idea, Tim, because I thought that secession issue was settled in the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln proved that secession was not a right of the states. But who knows? It probably have never been truly tested in court. So maybe it's something we need to revisit. I don't know. But I mean, we are being torn apart. There's no doubt about that. And how we hold together over the next 3 or 4 years, I don't know, honestly, because there are too many things trending in the wrong direction right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, but I think on the top of all the things that are going wrong right now, this issue where people are being separated, particularly by race and ethnicity, I think is a dangerous path that we are heading to. We are heading to some kind of dystopia here, and it scares me to death sometimes, because I have a grandson, and I don't know what country he's going to be living in 10 or 15 years. I really don't know. It scares me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, it's that time again in our show for our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, where we kind of wrap up the show with something kind of a little bit lighter, something a little bit crazy that somebody said out there that we can all get behind in our derision of. In this case, this goes right along these racial division lines that Leon was just talking about. And recently, I guess a rapper named 50 Cent recently said he was going to vote for Trump because he didn't, Biden's tax plans were going to turn him in from 50 cent into 20 cent.
He said, yes.
So anyway, that's not actually the quote, though, that we want to, pick apart. The bigger quote we want to pick apart is that an ex-girlfriend of his, I guess a white ex-girlfriend, Chelsea Handler, was recently on one of the late night comedy shows, and she was being interviewed by the host, and she was explaining to him why the situation with her boyfriend, doing the heresy of supporting Trump, I guess. She said he says he doesn't want to pay 62% in taxes. He doesn't want to go from being 50 cent to 20 cent. I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own pocketbook. And then she went on to further say that she'd be willing to seal the deal in other ways to get him to support Biden and publicly denounce Trump, that she'd be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about. So anyway.
Yes, sex for Biden.
Sex for Biden. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Never mind money. No, we don't need that. I just need the vote. Just vote for Biden and you got it, baby.
I thought it was appalling, though, that she is saying to him that he's trying to influence a whole swath of people based on color by saying that he simply doesn't want to pay taxes that Biden. And so she is then saying that he needs to think about his color and vote, tell everybody to vote a certain way. I mean, I can't believe how racist that is. I mean, you must be,
something.
Color of hood and sheet that they put on at these meetings.
Tell me this thing. But you know something, though. A few months ago, Joe Biden was on a talk show, and he said that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. But what Joe Biden was really telling us, people like me, is that you don't know your damn place. Okay? When Rosa Parks started the civil rights revolution, the civil rights movement sparked it at least, and she sat on the bus and she refused to give up a seat for a white man, she was arrested. You know why? Because she didn't know her damn place. And here we are in 2020. This piece of human waste, Chelsea Handler, is trying to tell 50 Cent, who I don't think very much of in the first case, but that's not the point here. He don't know his damn place by saying he's going to vote for Donald Trump. This is the thing about these stupid white liberals. They think they could save us. They want to save us. But all they're showing is their intent, their racist intent, that they think we are so damn stupid that we cannot think for ourselves. That's what the problem is. They think we cannot think for ourselves. We can't leave that damn plantation. We have to remain mental slaves and always vote for the Democrat. We have to, even though they're the ones who gave us all the damn Jim Crow and all the nastiness of slavery. Oh God, we still have to vote for them. We have to stay on that damn plantation. No damn place. This piece of human waste is going to tell me that. Thank you very much, Chancellor. I love you.
We may not be locked on the plantation on this show, but we are confined by our time constraints, and so we've reached the end of our limits, our time. And but thank you for joining us again for another episode of Libertarian Counterpoint.